Now to the problems that are continuing to dominate the build-up to the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Let's go live to Orla, who is in Rio for us. And all of the Russian athletes continue to arrive to the Olympic village despite uncertainty hanging over whether or not they'll be allowed to compete. What's the latest you've got for us on that?
Yes, Natalie, we thought this issue had been resolved, really, hadn't we? The International Olympic Committee had left the decision on which Russian athletes could compete at the Rio Games to the individual sporting federations. So if the sport give the all clear to an athlete, they could get on the flight to Rio. Those that weren't given the all clear had to stay at home. So some 250 Russian athletes have been arriving here in Brazil ahead of the Games, arriving at the Olympic Village, getting themselves settled in. But no sooner had they hung their flags on their balconies in that village, and the IOC have said, you know what, you may need to take those flags back down again and head home before the Games even get underway. They announced a three-person panel to assess each and every one of those Russian athletes to make a decision before the opening ceremony which will be competing at the Games. After all, that's 4 days, 250 Russian athletes, 3 people to decide. Tricky maths. Just how the IOC are going to do that is for them to know and for the rest of us to simply wonder. So really we are at something of a crisis point for the International Olympic Committee and the Rio 2016 Games. Terrible uncertainty for the Russian athletes trying to prepare for the Games, and also for the foreign competitors as well, who simply do not know whether or not they will be competing against their Russian competitors. Uncertainty for Team GB among them.
It's a very complex decision to make. I'm sure Thomas Bach and the IOC had a lot of legal issues to consider. You've got the debate around collective responsibility versus individual justice, and I'm sure that's an issue they had to contend with. Pushing it to the IFs, they know their sports very well. They know what's going on. I think what the rowing federation did in banning 22 out of 26 tells you something about their perspective. I think there were 7 swimmers banned, and they're still looking at some more. And if it's proven to be state-sponsored and systematic doping, then you've got to take really strong measures. Having said that, there are some sports where they feel pretty confidently that the athletes coming from Russia are clean. So in putting it to the IFs, it allows them to make that more considered judgment.
As with any major event, Orla, security is always going to be an issue. There was a controlled explosion, wasn't there, at the Maracanã Stadium yesterday. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, there was indeed. A suspect package was found inside the Maracanã Stadium, which will be the host of the opening ceremony in a few days' time. So police were taking no chances. They sent in a robot, carried out a controlled explosion. Nothing to worry about on this occasion. It would appear that it was simply a toolbox left behind by a construction worker. But as you say, nothing will be left to chance when it comes to security over any big event, certainly these Olympic Games. The organisers do have one considerable headache that has emerged over the last couple of days, and it's to do with security at the venues. I want to show you just what kind of security is in place right now and what spectators will be going through, because we've got a row of tents just behind us. A few of those are open just now for staff working on the park and also for media going through, and they are manned every day by what should have been private security firm. They check your pass, you put your bag through the scanner, and then you walk through an airport-style scanner as well. Now, the private security firm supposed to do that were due to hire 3,500 security personnel for that task. They announced a few days ago they'd hired just 500 staff. So unsurprisingly, they were sacked. The local police have been called in to take their place. Ordinarily, that wouldn't be a problem, but this is the same local police that have been protesting over the last few weeks against the government, saying they haven't been paid. They've been demonstrating at Rio Airport with big banners saying to tourists arriving in Rio, welcome to hell. You won't be safe here because we haven't been paid. We can only hope that situation has been resolved. I have to say, when it comes to security problems like that, it's not unusual. We look back to London, for example, and the private security firm G4S. They didn't provide enough personnel either, and once again the government had to step in. On that occasion it was military personnel. But all of this comes at a time of heightened global security, certainly surrounding any big events. We know that the International Atomic Energy Agency has also stepped up their security scans of Rio in case of any nuclear attacks, those threats coming in particular from Islamic State. So given the entire global situation and any threats that could be posed on one specific global event, security is going to be of the highest priority over the next few weeks.